Hello and welcome to Never Launch Live. Excited to have you. I am Natasha, founder of Never Launch on a Friday. For those of you who have never joined me on a live before, the story behind Never Launch on a Friday is I have been a female founder. I have been an entrepreneur my entire adult life. And one of the things that I personally know from lived experience of 20 years of running my own business is that we can only grow to the extent that our nervous systems let us grow. So we can set these goals. We can set revenue goals, business goals, weight loss goals, relationship goals, whatever the case may be. But if our nervous system, if we have blocks, if we have trauma, if we have fears, if we have anxiety, if we have terror, if we have, procrastination, if we have things that keep us in our head, in our body, in our spirit from being able to overcome those limitations, we will never achieve our goals. And so one of the things that I have used in my life and I use with my colleagues and my clients is talking about trauma healing, that what do we do? How do we break through? I always give the visual of, I like to imagine I'm in a fishing net. Okay, I'm in this fishing net, those kind of rope ones, and I'm stuck in this net and I'm all these nets around me. And I need a saw or I need something to cut this net that's around me. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to get out. But we have to figure out the tools of what's going to happen? What's going to help us get out of our own way? Because one of the things I hate about the self-help industry is so many times we read these books, right? And they're okay, list all your limiting beliefs. Number 1, write your goal. Number 2, list your limiting beliefs. And it's if we knew what they were, we would probably be very conscious about trying to overcome them. The problem with trauma is a lot of times we don't even know it's there. We don't know where it came from. It's in our body. It's in our psyche, but it's not on the forefront of our mind. So I like to help other women, female founders, through writing, through videos, through different courses I create. How do we do that? How do you grow to the next level through breaking through? And so one of the things I want to talk about today is in the honor of Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day, historically, if you're watching this from or listening to this from outside of North America, my dog's going to come in and out and constantly be distracting me. Hi, babe. Groundhog Day is the premise that we wake up and we repeat. And it's the same day. Every day is kind of the same. We're going through the motions. We wake up, same day like yesterday. Same day like yesterday, same day yesterday. And I think a lot of life is like that, especially if you have family, you wake up before your kids wake up and you do your stuff and then you get kids ready for school and then they go to school and then they work and then you work and you do. And so it's I know in my life, probably 80% of my day is the same every single day. And a lot of times it does feel like Groundhog Day. And so I think that's just part of life. Number 1, I think that's just part of life that we do live in a Groundhog Day. But what I want to talk about today is what about when you can't? When you can't live the same day and you would love to live the same day, but you can't. And this is a very emotional subject for me. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about my cancer journey. Some of you have heard this story in that in 2024, in June of 2024, I found a lump. September 24, I was diagnosed with stage 2 triple negative breast cancer. October that year, I had a bilateral mastectomy plus reconstruction. 2025, January to April, May, I was in preventative chemo. From May until now, cleaning up the mess of the chemo, bladder problems, obviously now being in menopause from all the chemo, a lot of different issues, sleeping problems, and all these different things that are the damage from what your system goes through in chemo. And then more surgery 2 weeks ago. And so I want to talk about what is it like? How do you reframe when you go through something that is very unnerving, that pulls you off of your routine, that pulls you off of the life that you've created. And I want to just start by saying this. I'm going to be sort of doing the call based on this sentence today. A couple of weeks ago, I was in this group therapy call. I love exploring different healing modalities, and I had decided I was going to join this group call about grief, this group therapy call. And everyone kind of took a turn. And then when it was my turn, I said my piece that, hey, I'm Natasha, I'm 44. I had this cancer experience last year, feeling a lot of just don't really know. It was a very traumatic experience. And I'm just trying to kind of recover from all the different things that went through, physically, emotionally, whatever, right? And the woman, the facilitator, she said to me, she said, anytime, and I'm just going to use this call to talk about my cancer experience, but it could be any traumatic experience. It could be anything. And this is just one scenario that I'll pull from my life, right? It could be anything. It could be some sort of abuse situation. It could be a divorce. It could be a financial situation. It could be a child situation. It could be anything. And I'm just going to talk you through what I am learning and what I am implementing in my own life as a means to possibly share or strategies or thought processes that could be helpful to you. So I was in this call and the facilitator, she said to me, she said, a lot of times with disease, especially if it comes out of nowhere, I had no genetic history. I was really healthy. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do any of the things. I was always very fit, very active. She was like, a lot of times that you physically might not be dead, but the life that you had before you were diagnosed is dead. And I was just hit so hard by that. I just started tearing up. I started crying. And it sort of pinpointed to me in one sentence where the grief was. For me, the grief was not in, okay, now I have all these scars, right? Okay, and the grief is not in, I have no hair. I had no hair for a long time, right? The grief is that the life that I had before is gone. It's dead. Like there's parts of my life before I cannot get back. It's not that I can't get them back, but I am not living it anymore. And it's part of this feeling of like, you just want to be who you were before this all happened. And you kind of can't. And it's just this feeling of just being robbed. And sometimes people feel, someone who maybe hasn't had cancer, they'll say things like, oh, well, at least you're not, at least you're alive, at least you made it, at least you're in remission. And this would be the same for any kind of grief feedback that someone gives you and they've never had the experience. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm in remission, but what about the rest of it? What about the rest of the pieces? Like my life is not just one thing. Like what about the rest of the pieces now that I have to put back together after all of that, right? And let's get into it. Let's talk about it because I want to give, I'm going to use my experience of going through breast cancer, but I want you to think this through for you, right? I'm going to break this down into different life categories and we can kind of look at how this is going to go. Talking about grief, talking about new, talking about the concept of the old is dead. If that is true, if the old life is dead, like sounds morbid, but the question then kind of begets itself. Number one is, hey, you just sort of resign yourself that certain parts of your life are going to be dead. They're just not going to be doable or the same as before. Or we can look at it like, what can I create? What can I reinvent? If this is true, that this chapter is closed, what am I creating now? And this is a question that I'm forcing myself to ask myself is that, okay, like I can't go back, but what do we create? So let's go through it. Because I don't know if this will give you some more context about what I'm talking about. So for example, physically, let's say that you've had a trauma and physically you are not the same. Like biologically, physically, you are not the same. I'll give a cancer example. So before I was diagnosed, I was super fit. I had just finished a yoga teacher certification. I was, I trained for bikini competition. I was in great shape. I was in really great shape going through bilateral mastectomies and chemo. I now have a ton of scars I didn't have before. I had the surgery done twice. So I now have a ton of scars. Without being too morbid, there are parts of this area that are no longer there, that because of blood flow reasons, they no longer exist. And I look at, okay, I feel sometimes a lot like Frankenstein. So it looks very different. My body biologically looks very different. Before cancer, I had really long blonde hair and you lose your hair, you lose your hair and now it's growing back and I'm trying to love what it looks like coming in, and I know it's going to be a long time before I have long hair again, but it's like, I don't have long hair. For a long time, I had no hair. I loved having long hair. I look at pictures of it and I just feel sad. I feel really sad that I'm like, I don't look at it anymore. Going into, when they put you into chemo for breast cancer, you go into menopause. Your body is in menopause. And all of a sudden, okay, so that now means your body feels really different. You have hot flashes or you feel moodier. You have certain symptoms of certain things that I had never dealt with before. You can't really sleep because your body is on fire. Once you're going through menopause because of chemo, they can't give you hormones, right? Because the hormones feed the cancer. You are trying to navigate a cocktail of pharmaceuticals to try to stop the hot flashes. And, during this call, I may have to stop and take off a layer or two because I'm burning. I just feel like I'm on fire. And so it's been a year of that, noticing different pain throughout my body that I never had before. My body after chemo has had all kinds of infections that just don't stop, just chronic infections of certain things that I've been trying to figure out and different strategies to stop these infections. But it's like constant. Sometimes you're in pain and then you're taking meds for this and meds for this and it doesn't work. And then you're back at the lab and you're just constantly going through this roller coaster of medication and of infections and pains. And so physiologically, my body is not going to be the same as it was before. So certain things like, some of my clothes, a lot of my clothes don't fit. I look at myself in pictures now and I was like, oh my gosh, I have the menopause belly. My body has gained weight. And just certain things. I've been lying in bed for off and on, since October of 2024. Like a lot of just lying around. I haven't had the energy to go and to the gym. And I've had a lot of surgeries. So you can't really lift and you can't, and you're just your body of who you were, this athlete in shape, your body composition. I really identified a lot with my body composition before. That's out the window at this point. And you have to really think like, okay, what does that even mean? I know I've had this joke with a friend of mine who is also going through breast cancer. And we kind of joke about like, you're a cyborg. When I was 34, I had a hysterectomy. And so hysterectomy and now mastectomy and then menopause. You're technically speaking, there's nothing left that like makes you quote unquote biologically all the typical female markers, right? Not that I don't feel I'm not female, but it's just all these typical things that we are taught make you quote unquote a woman. It's like, those are kind of gone, right? It's gone. And okay, the mind fuck of that. Like, okay, what does that even mean, right? And then you think about that and you think about all this physical crazy of what you look like and how you feel and the hormones and your moods and you're not sleeping and infections and all these things. And then you carry that forward. Okay, now what in your relationship? Okay, what does that mean? Okay, showing up as a partner, as someone's life partner now, I'm way more tired. I am not as, excited about going out and going dancing and living the life that we had before. So I'm just too tired. 9 o'clock, I am like out. I'm done. And I just want to go to bed and I don't want to go out. I don't necessarily, the idea he wanted to go see Avatar in the movie theater. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stay up past 9 o'clock. I can't. But before we would have gone to a movie, we would have done all these things. And now you have to rethink your whole life. You're like, okay, sorry, babe, I have another infection. Like I can't, I'm in pain. I need this. I need to rest. And you're like, and then you think about what does that do to your relationship? Like a trauma, your relationships are not going to be the same. And it's that process of having that courage together to be like, okay, how do we create this new again? What we had before, it's not, I can't carry that forward because I'm not this like, and maybe in the future, but at this point, going through all of this like recuperation and the reinvention of all these different things, like, what does that look like? If your relationship was based on, okay, we going on long, long hikes together every weekend, and you can't do that for, let's say, a year and a half, that affects you, right? And I'm not saying that was our case, but think about it for you. Like, okay, if you've had a trauma, if you've had a major life event, to think it's not going to affect your personal relationships is very naive. And to think that you're not going to struggle and you're not going to fight and you're not going to have problems you didn't have before, it's very, very naive. So reinvent that relationship. So let's go back to I'm going back to the physical part. Okay, so my body isn't the same, but it's like, okay, what can I do now with what I've got, right? What sports can I do now? What can I offer now? Maybe before I could have done a lot of power yoga, but maybe now could I do yin? Could I really invest in my relationship with yin yoga, for example? Okay, maybe I can't hike. I don't have the energy to hike right now, but maybe I could we could go for a walk, right? Maybe I can't, cook like healthy meals the way I did before, but maybe I can order healthy stuff from Costco that I can throw in the oven. You have to kind of think it through. Okay, what does it mean now? I can't get stuck in all these things I can't do. And if we bring that forward to the relationship side of it, definitely not. The relationship we had before cancer is not the same. But can I be grateful for how it's even stronger now from all this journey together? How can I show up for him as a better partner because of all the things that he's put in with all the legwork he's put in to support me? Okay, how can I become a better partner to him? How can I maybe become an even better partner to him on the other side of this than maybe I was before? How do I make this relationship emotionally more supportive and safe to him than maybe I was before, where I was just a little bit more thinking more like an independent person. I had never had to depend on someone like I depended on him going through this cancer process. How can I make this better? How can I make this relationship better? Let's go forward. Career. If you've been through any kind of trauma, it's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your, number one, your physical self is going to feel totally different. And I know for me, going through a breast cancer diagnosis and going through all that treatment, I had to hire a replacement in my work, in my business. I had to hire someone to run my day-to-day. And so when I came back after chemo, when I was ready to go back to work full-time, well, modified full-time, I literally didn't really have a job anymore. My job was gone. A team I'd worked with for almost a decade was now someone else's team. The job that I'd had for 10 years was gone. And although I was super excited about, hey, I don't have to do certain things in the business anymore that I didn't really like to do, I was incredibly sad. I'm like, oh my God, my people. The reason I'd gotten out of bed every day to work with these amazing people for a long, long time was gone. And I wasn't making the decisions, and I wasn't in the meetings, and I wasn't talking to anybody anymore. And I was just kind of like twiddling my thumbs. And on one hand, again, it's exciting because now I can invest in a whole new thing. But that reinvention of someone that you've been for 10 years, and then it's just you kind of come back and you're like, they don't need me. And I mean, kudos to her. She did a great job taking over. But it's you really question, what do I do? And what am I going to do? And do I want to do this anymore? And you're kind of in this exciting position, exciting, terrifying, sad, lethargic grief, a lot of grief on letting something you've spent a decade building, letting that go, and thinking about, what do I want to do? And then if you've ever done that to yourself, all the mental anguish that goes into that, of releasing and giving yourself permission to even want to do something else, right? It's I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think, okay, I started this, I have to keep doing this. But if you're sort of in a position where your business doesn't need you anymore, and not even that it doesn't need you anymore, if you're in a place where you're at this crossroad where you're I don't want to do this anymore, and you are now in a place where you have to force yourself to reinvent a revenue stream, an income stream, that can be so anxiety producing. I have a friend as well, I mentioned, she's still in treatment for breast cancer, and she had to make a career change so she could afford to pay her bills. And like me, she's a one-income household. So she had to make a hard call. She had to get a job because she couldn't keep her business running during chemo. And she's not happy. She doesn't like it. But it's okay. The life before is kind of dead. The who you were is dead. Now we reinvent. And will she run a business again? Possibly. Maybe not. Who knows, right? Depends how long her treatment goes on, right? So thinking about that, thinking about your career, it's going to really force you to ask hard questions, because once you go through a really life pivoting event, you come at it. It's very, very common after to look at it with new eyes and be like, this doesn't matter anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not on the list anymore. This is not this. I am dying trying to keep this as a priority. I don't care anymore. And it might not be your career. It might be certain things. There might be certain things in your life that you're just got to let it go because you literally do not care. Your just whole priority is just out the window. When you're medically or any situation, right, where you feel you could be dead, someone tells you could die. It's cliche, but it's true. Rethink what you want in your life. You rethink what you want to contribute once you're gone. And if you're dead, let's say, God forbid, cancer comes back, and next time I'm not as lucky, right? What am I leaving behind me? Questions that, it's just things you don't think about anymore. So bringing us to our final point of the spiritual side of trauma, these questions, these deep questions, these heartfelt, painful questions of, what am I leaving? What am I teaching my kids? What do I want? Who am I? And all these philosophical questions come up, and you can't really worry about the same things anymore. But then when you don't care about some of the things that you used to really care about, that can cause huge division, whether it's maybe certain friends you don't want to talk to anymore, or certain family members you don't want to be around anymore, or there's certain hobbies that you don't want to be a part of anymore, or there's certain habits that you have that you just aren't interested in anymore, and you just let it go. And that can cause a lot of emotional, spiritual pain, as you are literally recreating who you are. And to finish this podcast for today, most of us will hit a point in our life where there is a very clear crossroad, maybe multiple. I know for me, I've had multiple, but this one is a big one, right? Where there's a before and there is a very clear after. And what I'm working through, and what I want to challenge you to work through as we're looking at Groundhog Day, as we're in a new year of 2026, is, what is that going to look like, right? If we could paint the canvas, if we have a fresh start, if we have decided that this can be a new opportunity. What do we want that to look like? And it doesn't have to be the same. Like for me, I really am challenging myself to not even think about what I had before, but like, what now? Not backpedaling to retrieve and recover what was behind me, but okay, could I put that energy instead into creating something new? Because it's very possible I'm not going to be able to go back. And maybe I don't even want to if I actually stopped and thought about it, right? So I want to hear from you. Have you had a crisis? Have you had a trauma? You don't have to tell me what it is, but have you had a point where you're like legit at a crossroad and the behind that chapter is closed, that door is closed, there's no going back, and you sat down and you're, wait a second, what's next? Are you in the process of that? Have you done that? Do you feel like you should be doing that right now? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. I want to hear about it, because like trauma healing, it's a process. It's not something you wake up one day and like, oh hey, I'm healed. It's a process. There is a process. There's recovery. There's putting all the pieces, and I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not. And as we go into this podcast, I love to read. I love to share. I love to like link to different resources. I like to be the person who can bring tools, bring tips, bring ideas to help you in your own healing, so that as you heal, as you let these things go, you can create something even more magical, even more beautiful, create what you want to create. Because probably you've had something on your list that you wanted to, a goal you've wanted to achieve, maybe more than one, you've wanted to achieve for a long time. And you can't get it and you don't know why. And the why is that somewhere on the inside, in your heart, in your brain, in your body, in the combination, you're stuck and you don't know why. And that's what I love to talk about, because I love seeing women shine. I love seeing brilliant women like create what they want to create, and to helping share tools that can help you do that. That's what I live for. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you next week.